This is the first thing I tell you guys. First of all, everybody who's in this space, I honor you guys. This has been my life for a long time, and it's not my life anymore. I'm not in door to door. It actually hasn't been for a long time, for 4 or 5 years. But all of the things that I'm doing today are habits and skills that I was able to get from that experience. And so a little bit about myself today. So 41 years old, worked in this industry for a long time. Worked for a small company goes bankrupt, and ended up working at Vivint. I got on at Vivint early when they were a $50 million company, and I left when they were a $13.5 billion company. So I got stock in the company early. When I was 27 or 28 years old, I think I got $7 or $8 million from a sale to Blackstone. And then 6 times that when they went public 10 years later. And along the way, for the last 17 years, I've earned over 7 figures from this industry in upfront commissions outside of stock. It's what I want to talk about today. And let's go through this. Is the clicker working or not working? All right, you're my man today, me and you. So what I want to talk through today is about skills and how to acquire skills. And what I'm gonna share is this is just my personal experience. This is starting with nothing, no skills and no money, and 20 years later, having a lot of skills and a lot of money. And it's a recipe that's repeatable, it's scientific, and most of you guys are doing it right now. What I would challenge is you have to do it in a more deliberate, systematic way if you want to go up level, if you want to go get to a different level. And so we're going to jump through this. So let's go the next one. Okay, so there's a professor at Harvard Business School, and he was doing a podcast with David Solomon. He's the CEO from Goldman Sachs. And they're talking to him about capitalism. And they're talking to him about this process of, teaching capitalism. Harvard's the location in the world for teaching business and capitalism and growth. And he's talking to him about, but there's downsides with capitalism. There's exploitation, there's, pros and cons, and he basically said, there's good and bad with both. But over the last 30 years, what's up, Dwayne? How you doing? You look good. I saw that big buck. It's a big deal. Over the last 30 years, over 1 billion people have gone from poverty to the middle class because of capitalism. And what he said is the truest form of dignity that you can give to another human being is to teach them to be economically self-reliant. And that for me is the spiritual side of this job. That's the magic of what you guys get to go do. And I think about that and I get emotional. Because for me personally, that was the difference. And so I want to go through my story, and I'm going to go through my journey. And I'm sure that every single person in this audience can relate. And the challenge would be, as you get aware of these patterns, how do you get deliberate at how to up level and take your personal earnings and your personal human life value continue to grow as you go? So let's go to number 1. So I'm 21 years old. I see Mark Toon in the crowd. Me and Mark are good buddies. Go back to smoking weed on Mark's roof, long time ago. From causing trouble to going on church missions to coming back and not having any skills. And I remember I was scared. I'm 21 years old. And I had a buddy who'd gone out and he'd made $50,000 selling satellites door to door. And I was going to restaurants trying to get a job as a waiter, and I couldn't get a job. There's a stack of resumes. And I remember I can't get this job, and I sit down with a buddy of mine, and this simple belief of if he can do it, I can do it, was the difference that gave me kind of the courage to try. And so went out that summer, and a couple of things happened, and I've noticed this at every stage in my career, and if you can apply this formula, I promise you 2023 will be or 2024 will be your best year. You'll make more money than you've ever made, and you'll have more personal growth than you've ever had, and it's early enough in the year you can apply it and you can take massive action. So let's jump through it. This is the formula. Learning how to sell. This is the 6-figure skill set. So this is the skill set that you go from getting an hourly job to being able to demand 6 figures in the marketplace. And this is the formula. Go to it. Next slide. So I was in a seminar like this, and this guy gets up, which is funny now because he was like 40 years old and now I'm 41. And when I was 21, he felt really old. And now he doesn't feel as old. But I remember I had $3,000 that I'd made from recruiting. And I'd read a book, The Richest Man in Babylon, that talked about, investing your money. And so I go to this seminar with the intent to give somebody money to go make me wealthy. And this guy got up and he said something so profound. He said, there's no such thing as good investments. There's only good investors. And if you don't know what a good investment is, leave your money in the bank. Invest in yourself, invest in your human life value, your ability to produce value in the marketplace. And if you do that, over time, you'll be able to see with your own eyes what a good investment is. You don't need to outsource that to somebody else. You don't need to delegate. You can actually see it with your own eyes and identify this is a good opportunity. And I was the exact opposite in that moment. I did not know what a good opportunity is. I did not know how to invest. And I went there with money to give that responsibility to somebody else. And it was profound for me. And so I took that money. It was my entire net worth, $3,000. The next slide. One more. I took that $3,000, and my interpretation of this thing was go to Barnes & Noble, buy every book that's ever existed on sales, like clean out the entire place. This is before when they don't have Audible or iTunes or Spotify or anything like that. So I spent $3,000 on books and an iPod. And I went home, and I remember coming home with these bags, and my wife was just like, what are you doing? And I was so certain that if I was to consume this information and apply it, that I would go get skills that would make us wealthy. And I don't know if I've 10,000x that investment over 21 years. But I listened to every book that I bought that summer. And it was The Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, everything ever done by Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, just diving in, Brian Tracy. And by the end of that summer, I made $50,000, and it changed my life. And I remember driving home at the end of that summer with this confidence. If you go back to that first slide where he says, the truest form of dignity that you can give to another human being is to teach him to be economically self-reliant. This dignity that I felt in my heart, this confidence that I can go into the market and I can take care of my family. And it changed my life forever. It gave me the confidence to go try bigger things. So this recipe, I'm going to repeat this recipe 3 or 4 times. And I'm telling you, do this week. It's not sales driven. It transfers from skill set. Number 1, go become the category expert. If you're going to do sales, do sales. Go be the best person that's ever done it, ever. And the way to do that, 2024, it is irresponsible not to be successful. You have access to every podcast on experts. You've got access to these conventions. You've got access to books. And within your organization, you have somebody that's doing it at a very high level. This is what I tell you about advice, and it's so relevant to this place. Out of 100 people that give you advice, you should take advice from 2 of them. Go find who's world class. Go find the person that you would change places with. And if you do that, you're gonna get the right advice that's gonna give you the right map so that you can go navigate. So this is what I did that year. I bought every book that I could find on sales. I went, and you have to be unreasonable with your action plan. It can't be like a spaced out plan. You have to go take massive action. Stuff that's unreasonable to anybody else. 1% of people make all the money. In sales, the top 20% make 80% of the money, but that's in investing, that's in every business. There's the Pareto principle. But 4% make 96% of the money. And the top 1% makes all of the money. And so get advice and study that 1%. So next one, interview the best people. This is the best 5 hours you will spend in 2024. Identify the best 5 people in your industry and go take them to lunch and go download the way that they see the world. I'm just telling you, that's made me tens of millions of dollars at this point. But in sales, made me millions of dollars. So I sat down with all the best people, interviewed them, and I got maps on exactly how to go be a top performer in that organization. People that succeed, it's not by accident. They do things and think differently than everybody else. They're not better than you, but they do have a better map. And you need to be very concise and deliberate that you go download the way that they see the world. Then all those other characteristics of work and effort and good attitude, they play well for you. So that's number 1. Let's go number 2. Take massive, you can't discount the work. You need to work harder than anybody else in the preseason and in the summer. But without the right map, without deliberate practice, without working on the right things with the right mindset, you're wasting your time. How many of us know somebody that's worked really hard in our organization for 20 years and makes the same money that they made 20 years ago? It's because they're wasting their time. They're in autopilot. They're not getting better. They're not up-leveling. And I'm telling you, it's not that complicated. But common knowledge is rarely common practice. So you need to be very distinct, very deliberate on what you go do. So let's go to the next one. So this is the 7-figure skill set. If you want to make $1 million in this industry, you need to get this skill set on top of selling. You need to be world class at convincing people to come work with you. And you need to work with an organization that has a footprint that allows you to go build. I'm telling you, who you work with matters a lot. Work with a company that you can go build with long term. I've worked for 2 companies in my career in door-to-door sales. The first company was fantastic, amazing people, and it went bankrupt and lost all of the money that I'd made those years. And a lot of my friends that I'd helped come to that organization end up leaving the industry or not working with me. So if you choose the wrong company, you will rebuild. So find a great company that's going to be around long term. And then number 2, become world class at recruiting and leading people. So my experience with that, I went to Apex in 2007. I had a problem. I had never done alarms, and I'd never managed a security team. So I applied the exact same recipe. Read every book that exists that I can get my hands on. 1 to 2 books a week on leadership and coaching. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Roy Williams, all these coaches. And then also the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, John Maxwell, there's endless stuff that you can go consume. And then I found the 5 people that were the top managers in that organization the year before. I can name them out. It was Dan Little, who'd done 3,000 accounts. It was Ty Williams, who'd done 3,000 accounts. It was Alan Swick, who'd done 3,000 accounts. It was Scott Brown, who'd done 3,000 accounts. Take 5 hours, go interview them, and you will have a map for how to go be a top performer in your organization. It's not complicated, but common knowledge is rarely common practice. If you will take the time to understand the way the top performers in the industry see the world. You'll start seeing the world that way, and then all that dedication. You guys are here on a Saturday afternoon. You care more than everybody else, but you better have the right map or it's going to be wasted effort. And so I did that. I got this map, and then I put together an unreasonable plan. My unreasonable plan is I'm going to drive to Arizona, and I'm not coming home until I sell 10 accounts. So I drove to Arizona, and I didn't come home until I'd sold 10. And by the end of that week, I knew how to sell alarms. And then I drove to Arizona on January 1st and not come home until I sold 10. And I sold 10. And I did that every month until the summer, and I'd bring my recruits out with me. And that summer changed my life. If I wouldn't have taken that plan, I would not have had my career that I had in door-to-door sales. It changed my life. But by the time the summer started, I had 68 preseason accounts. Again, before, I'd never sold an account before, so I had a skill set. I actually had like some gold that I found along the way that I didn't know I was gonna find. Because it's winter time and it gets dark early and it's cold. And I have this unreasonable plan that I'm not coming home till I sell 10 accounts. It's not effort. I'm not gonna go try it. I'm doing this, it's done. I'm not coming home. Well, if you're not coming home, you start early in the day. So I'd get started at 9 o'clock and I'd work till after dark. And dark is 5 o'clock. And everybody in that thing is saying, oh, no one buys after 1 o'clock or before 1 o'clock. And I'm like, well, they buy from me because I'm out here and I've sold every day before. So all of a sudden I learn, hey, people buy early and people buy late. But there's people in your organization, and they're not the top people, but there's people that'll tell you stuff that's not true. And if you buy into what they tell you, it's gonna screw up your career. So you gotta be very careful on who you take advice from. Take advice from people who are doing it at the highest level. Everybody's gonna wanna give you advice. Be very careful. Put your filter on and only take it from people that are world class. Okay, let's keep going. Studied everything I could find on leadership, interviewed the best leaders. From that year, 2007 until today, currently, I made 7 figures from that company. That one massive action step and building on that foundation. It's 19 years now, 18 years, it's crazy. 8-figure skill set. If you want to go make 10 million plus, you have to be an owner. You will never get wealthy from a paycheck from a company. The tax code is absolutely built to punish employees. That's just how it's built. So if you're a doctor or a dentist or a pro athlete, the tax code is just built to absolutely wreck you. And you'll go to certain states and it's worse. You go to California and go add another 12 to 15% on top of that. The only people that get really wealthy are owners. And you can own in a couple of ways. You can either found a business and go own it, or you can buy equity in something. So for me, I got wealthy, not from my paychecks from Vivint. I got equity in Vivint. I got ownership. One of the owners, he'd got kind of transitioned out of the business, and he was a little bit bitter, and he was selling his stock. And I bought a chunk of his stock. I had $400,000 to my name from that previous summer. It was my entire net worth. And do not do what I did. Like, this is not how you invest, but I did this and it worked. I had $400,000, and I'm at the gym with Todd Peterson. And he's like, hey, Keith is gonna sell some of his equity. I'm like, oh really, are you gonna buy it? And he's like, no, I've got way too much. I'm like, well, can I buy it? He's like, yeah, you probably buy it. Goes back to his partners. They allow us to buy in. And again, I had a very deliberate goal. I had models. I had people that I looked up to. And so I had like some wisdom. I'd read these books. I'm 25 years old. I'd been studying for 4 years at this point. So I knew I needed to invest. And so I said, hey, how do I get deeper in this? I'm buying this for 1/3 of what it's worth. How do I get deeper? Who would lend me money? I'm gonna lever up. Which again, don't do this, but I did this. So I go to the person who's selling the equity. His name's Keith Nielsen. Said, hey, would you lend me money to buy your own equity? And he's like, yeah, it's gonna be really expensive. I'm like, what's expensive? He's like, 24%. I'm like, whoa, man, that is expensive. But I had enough money to make an $8,000 payment. 24% on 400 grand's $8,000. So I'm like, I'm gonna go borrow 400 grand, put 400 of my own, have 800,000 in this deal. If it's worth 3x day one, I just 3x 400 grand, 6x'd. I go back to Todd, and Todd's like, 24%, he's taking you behind the woodshed. I'm like, well, what should I borrow it for? He's like, 12%. I'm like, would you borrow it for 12%? He's like, yeah. So I borrowed 800 grand from Todd. So I have 1.2 million that I rolled into this deal. 400,000 of my own cash, 800 grand, made the same $8,000 payment. 2 years later, they sold to Blackstone for $2 billion. That $400,000 investment turned into like 30 million bucks over 14 years for me. But this is me being, hey, that's pretty good, all right. But that's me being at the gym, working for 4 years to be prepared for a moment that popped up. And then being ready to go take action, knowing what I wanted. And I could give you story after story after story after story that exact thing's the case. But I couldn't have seen that opportunity if I wouldn't have spent the previous 4 years studying as hard as I was studying. So you have to build your human life value. If you're waiting for somebody to come deliver that opportunity to you, I'm telling you, it's never showing up. You got to go create them for yourself. So you have to get an 8-figure skill set. This is my recipe. Study everything that's ever been written on investing. Amazing books. Richest Man in Babylon. It is the best book you'll ever get on investing. Do what's in that book and you will be wealthy. And if you violate it, you'll lose your money. Every time I've lost money, I've violated those principles in that book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. Tony Robbins has 2 amazing books on investing. He's bringing out his 3rd right now. And the entire thesis on his 3rd book, the entire thesis, is that the holy grail of investing, the wealthiest people in the world, have over 50% of their net worth in private real estate, private credit, and private equity. And this is through like a lot of work. And if you read his first 2 books, that would not be your assumption. It would be invest passively in the market, which I'm completely for. But the people who are the wealthiest, they have over half their net worth in private real estate, private credit, and private equity. Again, be a student. And if you don't want to make 8 figures, that's fine. But if you do, it's not going to hit you in the face. I promise you. You have to go search for it. It's top 1% stuff. And the way to go find it is you have to go on a journey and find the top 1% people that are doing it. And again, interview them. So I've got mentors in my life that are billion-dollar mentors. The last 3 days, I was on a golf trip. You've got Ryan Smith that owns the Jazz. You've got Matt Hawkins it'll be the biggest IPO in 2024. A company called Waystar. Big SaaS roll-up. Got Dave Decker that sold a big company. We got Craig Cannon that's building like a $10 billion project in Utah County called Utah City. There's 16 people. I'm just telling you, birds of a feather flock together. Go find people who are doing what you want to go do and take advice from those people. And don't take advice from anybody else. And again, 2024, you have access to those people. The mentors in my life that have influenced me the most of them don't know me. It's the Tony Robbins, it's the Stephen Coveys, it's the Clayton Christensens, it's the Tom Peters. And it's just me saying, I love the way you see the world, and I'm gonna go study everything that you've ever written, and I'm gonna cherry pick the stuff that's gonna make my life better and give me a better quality of life. Or you can not do any of it, and you can just go let life live you. So again, I'm telling you, like this stuff matters to me because I had over 100,000 people work with me in all the time that I worked at Vivint. Very few of them are financially independent. But we would pay 125 to 150 million a year in sales commissions. It's not that they made, like, I love that there's like a sick shoe store out there that's selling $2,500 shoes. And a lot of you guys in this room have $2,500 shoes. If you have $2,500 shoes on and you don't have assets, you're an idiot. And again, it's just like honest medicine. It's saying, you've seen the study of the marshmallows. Have one marshmallow today or two marshmallows later. Go have two later. Invest today, have the prize later. Or have your prize today and be broke later. And most people have their prize today and don't have the income later. Okay, so one more. Study billionaires. When in the history of the world have you had a chance to go jump into the minds of the wealthiest people in the world? Ever. In the last million years. It's like the last 20 to 25 years, and mostly like the last 6 years. We have access to information that's never existed. So resources aren't the problem, it's lack of resourcefulness. No one cares about your life as much as you care about your life, so you need to step up, raise your standards, and once you do, you're gonna go find exactly what you're looking for, and it's out there. So a couple more. One more. Invest your money. One more. 9-figure skill set. If you want to go get a 9-figure skill set. So our company is a company called Sandlot. We raised and deployed hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 3 years. We've had over 800 people that are qualified clients, so 2.5 million net worth and above invest with us. And in that, there's 30 or 40 billionaires, but a lot of 100 millionaires. And I'm just telling you, that's a skill set. The same way door-to-door sales is a skill set. Managing and leading teams is a skill set. Investing is a skill set. Except that's a 10-figure skill set, 9-figure skill set. And the exact same recipe. Study everything that's ever, so this is my personal experience. I'm 41 years old. The last 11 years, I've spent 400 grand going to Harvard Business School over the last 11 years. I've gone 2 to 4 weeks a year for the last 11 years. And I dropped out of college. These events are fantastic. Tony Robbins, anything that you can do that will up-level your skills, any investment you make in yourself is the best dollars you can ever spend. But there's people that do this. In business, most businesses fail, but some succeed in a big, big way. Go study the ones that succeed in a big way, and I'm telling you, success leaves clues, and the people who do it and do it well, they do things different, and they see the world different than everybody else. I played golf yesterday with Ryan Smith for 4 hours, and he's going through the SAP transaction and taking Qualtrics private and buying the Jazz, and I promise you guys, he thinks different than everybody else. I didn't say anything, I just listened for 4 hours. There's this NIL deal. Who's college sports fan? So NIL is wrecking college sports. It is absolutely like creating havoc. And for coaches, it's really tough. You've got somebody like, think about like your sales teams. Somebody's calling your best. They actually have access. They know how many of your guys selling every day. And they're gonna call them every day. And then they're gonna offer them like tons of money every day. And that's what you're dealing with in college sports. It's crazy. It's the Wild West. And, you know, the coaches have to go to people and say, hey, will you give us money? And that's like not a sustainable thing. So Ryan comes up with this idea. It's brilliant. He goes to BYU and he says, hey, your court, you have these seats, but there's a lot of wasted space. Here's the court of the Jazz. These 10 areas, you could add beachfront property, you could add front row seats that people would pay a lot of money for. We'll do the construction, we'll reconfigure those. We'll buy those from you for cheap. But then You let us resell those and all that money goes to NIL. So in the course of one decision, he goes and creates $2 to $3 million of recurring revenue every year. The BYU's basketball coach Pope gets to go retain his best talent and go cherry pick 1 or 2 stars just by thinking different than everybody else. I'm telling you, if you surround yourself by people that think different, your life, you'll start thinking differently. And it's not that complex, but you need to know what your outcome is. So if you want to make 6 figures selling, there's a lot of people in this room. How many people in this room made 6 figures selling at one point in their life? Raise your hands. There's a lot of people you could go interview to go make 6 figures selling. If you want to make 7 figures running teams, who's made 7 figures running teams before? Raise your hand in this room. There's a lot of people. Go find them and interview them. If you want to make 8 figures investing, who in this room has made 8 figures investing before? Has over a $10 million net worth? Raise your hand high. There's less, but there's people in this room. Find them. Sit down with them. And it doesn't need to be in this room. I'm just telling you, like, they're out there. Go network into them. And for sure, podcasts, audiobooks, like all this stuff exists. Who in here has built a company that's worth over $100 million in this room? Raise your hands. A couple of us. A couple over there, over here. I'm telling you, go find somebody who's done it. They think and act differently than everybody else. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But if you do want to do it, don't take advice from your dad or your mom or your uncle or your brother. They don't have the right advice. I love my dad. He's the greatest guy in the world. If I want to learn how to stay married, nobody better to get advice from. If I want to learn how to become financially independent, he's not the right guy. I need to go find different mentors or different leaders that'll give me different advice. Okay, let's pop to the end. What's it all for? So we're talking a lot about specifics, and I'll wrap it up. What's it all for? My challenge to you guys, one more. My challenge to everybody is that the secret to living is giving. And ultimately, you need to have a bigger purpose for why you're doing it. You cannot take it with you. And if you can cultivate a spirit of abundance and a spirit of giving, the entire journey will be different. So I had a mentor a long time ago. He changed my life. It was Todd Peterson. In a lot of these aspects, he's one of those 5 that I go to for advice. But he's one of the most generous individuals I've ever met. And he came up with this habit where he said, I'm going to go carry a bag of cash and I'm going to go find somebody that's in need on a daily basis, and I'm going to give money to that person in need. And so, I started doing this. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And it's fundamentally changed my life. I've always wanted to give, and the big gifts are awesome. We did a big event this last year, and we raised $10 million for primary children's. That's like super cool. But I'm telling you, the stuff that will change your life is the intimate one-on-one interactions with real humans that are struggling, and you don't know what's going on in their life. But if you want to live in abundance, so where's my clothes? I have this bag right here. Carry this bag. Don't steal my bag. I got a sack of cash, and it's 7 or 8 years now that I'll look for somebody in need. And it can't be something that it's like, hey, I'm gonna do this, down the road or whatever. It needs to be easy. So I'm driving the other day. I'm on the phone with somebody. I'm deep in a heated conversation. Look over. There's a lady, I'm in the middle lane. There's a lady 2 stalls over on the side of the road with a sign. Click, stop my conversation, roll down my window, waving her over. Hey, can you come over here? She comes over, give her $200. And she just breaks down. I don't know her story. But what I know is I was feeling something right here, and I acted on it. And I went about the rest of my day, and I was different. Showed up different. Yeah. One more story then finish up. So we adopted a couple of kids. Me and my wife had tried to have kids. We had 3 of our own. And then couldn't have kids for a while. And so we adopted a couple of kids, really magical story, special story. But our oldest son, CJ, his birth mom, she lives in East St. Louis. Who's knocked in East St. Louis? I mean, it's scary. East St. Louis is just, it's crazy that it's the U.S. It's just scary. And she's a single mom with 4 kids in East St. Louis. And her oldest is 9 years old. CJ was her 4th kid. And she had it with a different birth dad. And one of the other birth dads basically said, if you bring that baby home, I'll kill the baby. So she goes to the abortion clinic, and there's protesters outside. And she's like, I can't do this. And so somehow, I think it's God. I end up, we connect with her. We get, she, allows us to adopt her son. Well, some time goes by, and again, my wife's just like feeling it. She's like, we have to have Jessica and her family come out and come stay with us. Like, we've always told CJ about his family, but we've always kind of been hesitant to merge those worlds. And so I'm like cautioning my wife. I'm like, hey, our life's pretty damn good right now. Like, do we want to sign up for more? And she's like, Jesus didn't do what's easy. I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm like, okay, have them come out. So her and her 4 kids come out to the house, and it was just magical. It was super special. And her oldest is 9, her youngest is 3, and we go have this real fun weekend. Take them to the BYU game. We're hanging out, and sometimes you see things that you just can't unsee. And so they fly home, and it's like, what do you do now? They're going back to sleep on a floor in East St. Louis. So we're just like, can't do it. So we go buy them a house, buy them a car. This is all like the last 2 months. Bring them out to Utah. Their kids are integrating in schools. And it's not clean, it's not easy, but we're following our hearts, and I'm telling you, it's never done me wrong, and it costs us money, but there's magic that comes with it too. I was in an event just like this, and it was right before we bought the house, and I'm giving a training similar to this, and I put up a QR code and I say, hey, anybody who wants to donate can donate. Literally in a room like this room, $60,000 from people saying, I want to participate. That goes to pay for school for her kids. So we set up, we thought we were going to get like $5,000. And everybody steps up, and I'm sure everybody's proud of it. And so my challenge to you guys as you go through, and as you're navigating 2024, just to recap. Well, let's click one more. Oh, sorry. As you go through in 2024, identify exactly what your outcome that you're looking for. And if it's, I want to go be the best salesman in my company, if you can go apply that formula, I promise you that you will have disproportionate benefits in 2024. If it's, I want to go make 7 figures as a sales leader within my organization. Step number 1 is you better figure out, is somebody making 7 figures in your organization? If they're not, you're going to be the pioneer. You don't want to be the pioneer. You want to go somewhere where people are actually doing what you want to go do. The next one, that if you want to go start a company, most of them fail, but some don't. And the ones who don't do things different than the ones that fail. And so if you can go take this formula and apply it, and then go take unreasonable, massive action, I promise you, fast forward 12 months, you'll be in a different universe than you are right now. And so our business, we invest in private equity. You have to have a net worth of over 2.5 million. And so most people can't. But if you're interested, click the QR code and I'll have myself or somebody from your team sit down with you and put a plan together. But thank you guys for taking some time, spend some time with me.